Hello, bonjour, greetings, and welcome to the unofficial PopCap PopCast, a podcast about the golden age of PopCap games by two guys who were there at the time. I'm Steve Notley.
And I'm Isaac Aubry, and we want to emphasize the unofficial aspect of this podcast. We do not represent EA Games or PopCap Games or PopCap under EA. We are just some folks who used to work at the old company before all that went down.
So this week, we're just following on from last week with an incredibly amazing guest, Isaac. Who is this guest?
We have brought on Ace, as he is affectionately known. His name is Brian Rothstein. He is the creator of Peggle, and he was also the one who built the first Zuma, and is a very talented programmer and a good friend, and he's got a lot of awesome insights into building those games in the early days of PopCap. So you're in for a treat.
Indeed. And so we are just going to roll right into it in three, two, one.
Oink.
Previously on the unofficial PopCap PopCast. And then you're just fully engaged on the journey
Yeah.
of that ball to the bottom of the screen with all of its sort of attendant little surprises and disappointments and like
Well, I also think if you have a
like
good shot, you're like, yeah, I basically planned that. And if you have a bad shot, you're like, oh, it's bad luck.
yeah.
Yeah.
But again, yeah, that's like we kind of naturally came upon firing one at a time. It felt right, even though like we didn't plan it that way.
It's just
And then a
because it's
couple.
like well, this is where the player's attention
Yeah, you
naturally
want to spend
goes,
all the
right?
time just watching the ball. Or I think cats would watch that. I want to say this is a small little story, but like maybe Ben and Chan's cats would watch the ball bounce around. And I remember
I
they said their
remember
cats
that.
would
Yeah.
watch the Zuma balls. I'm like, well, we got a hit on our hands then,
Well,
because
because
Yeah.
because
The
I
cats like it.
remember
We're good to go.
'cause I wanted to move into the whole business of now that we had this fantastic game design, the question became, what are we going to call it and how are we going to theme it? Sort of similar to Zuma, right? Where it's like, okay, now that
Yeah.
you have this core game, I guess Jason and Wally just sort of said, okay, we're going to do this tiki thing, and then it's like, yep. And that I think I don't know, I wasn't there, but I think Zuma was fairly
Yeah.
controversial in that sense. It was just like, let's do this, and they did it, and it all clicked. Whereas now, as I recall, when I came back and actually started working, I moved to Seattle. At that point, then there was like, well, what are we gonna? It was called Thunderball for a
Mhm.
while. It was gonna be like a cat and a Viking
It was
helmet.
a Viking
Yeah, it was
theme.
like a Viking theme and a cat theme. And then I remember like because I was such an advocate, an evangelist for Peggle. I was like, no, we got to call it Mr. Ball.
I
Like
know,
you
Mr.
are the
Ball, but Mr.
ball,
Ball and
right?
Mr.
Like,
Ball is in the game because
and
that's
Mr.
like the
Ball is it
magic
because I
hat.
was like because exactly. I think you added the little hat. I mean, I think I drew a
I,
ball with a little floating
yeah,
top hat and said like, no, it's Mr. Ball. You are the ball.
yeah, I
Uh,
like that idea.
which it's fine that it wasn't because I think what it ended up becoming is better than that. And there's probably
Mhm.
another game called Mr. Ball that doesn't have to be Peggle, but yeah, like you're totally focusing in on your identity as the ball. But then see now I remember I was present at the time and at least partially involved in some of the work of okay, because you had now at this point created different magic powers, right? And so
Right,
now the
right.
different magic powers kind of needed identities to make sense of them. And I wish I could claim that I had much of a role. I think I remember sort of participating in a couple of the conversations, but I think it ultimately boiled down mostly to I think, and Isaac, maybe you can correct me here, but I think it was sort of mostly, again, Super and Walter just going, yeah, okay, we'll have like the pumpkin be the one that falls through, and we'll have like a cat for the bumpers, and
Oh,
I
the
don't know where
pyramid.
the Bjorn came from as a unicorn, but again, it's
I
brilliant,
think, well, Unicorn from Soup Beer, it's Unicorn on that
I
special
guess,
label that he made.
and
And
I guess
then the reason is Bjorn, I think, because Walter just wanted to rhyme it, Bjorn the Unicorn.
right, but I mean, and
Walter
like,
was
because
good at coming up with names, I'll say. I like him. I came
well,
up, though, I want to take credit. Jimmy Lightning, that was my.
That was you.
right, because the
Awesome.
Jimmy Lightning for the multi-ball, and we've got like Claude again, like the pun, Claude
Yeah.
for Claude for the pinball flippers, and then the Zen Ball. The Zen Ball is such a brilliant magic
Yeah.
power because it truly is. It feels magical, even though you could look at it and go, "Well, I understand in principle." how this power works. But
Right.
when you think about it, it's like, well, what is happening? Well, what it's doing when I get a Zen ball is that I click and then it is sort of sweeping over like maybe a quarter of a degree
Yeah.
of inclination and then running every possible
A
sequence
certain
of
amount. It uses
like
the same
trajectory
logic as the
of
computer player uses. That's actually where I did get to use my collision detection efficiency because I run all of the
yeah,
checks
you run
at the
all the
same time.
possible paths the ball
And
could
that's
take and
why
then just pick the best one.
it wouldn't
Yeah.
pause. It wouldn't pause except for on a really slow computer when you hit
Yeah.
the shot.
But
Apparently,
it was
the
just long
math.
enough where we're just sort of going like invoking the spirit. You go bow,
Oh yeah, that
and
helped.
then it
That
would go
helped.
like doink,
You're right.
and then it was just like you didn't know what exactly would happen. All you knew is that it would be a good shot.
Right,
That
right.
like because it would just bounce around and get like oh, and then like the bucket would hit it, it would go flying back up and hit a few more balls and just like
Yeah.
When that got ported over to the Dual Shock for the handheld device, the math that you used to create that Zen Ball and the replays was apparently it didn't work on that device, and it all had to be it's like floating point math physics.
There were
The
problems with the replays. I remember this that I never solved. I solved it. I figured out later it had to do with the floating point mode could be different depending on whether 3D was on or not, the accuracy of floating point calculations. So I
Mhm.
had a hack where I just stored the position of the ball in every single frame to make sure it was like correct and didn't diverge.
well, and I think
Because I could
too
never
like
figure out why. I later on a different game I figured out. I'm like, oh God, it's so obvious now.
well, and I think like Zen Ball struggles in levels that actually feature like moving pegs and stuff.
Oh yeah, or especially
Uh,
like the one with the fish that moves from side to side. It has to create a copy of that fish for every ball that hits it because it'll be in a different spot,
yeah,
based on when the ball hit it and things like that.
A real
but
peek behind the curtain for Peggle fans here. This is
Yeah.
awesome.
well, and it's interesting again because I think back to it, how it sort of solidified, how the world of Peggle solidified. It's because I remember again, it was called Pego for the
Right.
That's
longest
right.
time. And so then eventually my job was to be the writer for it. And so once we got past the basic sort of tutorial stuff, then I was supposed to try to give voice to this oddball collection of like, there's a cat in a King Tut outfit, and there's a unicorn and a
Yeah.
owl and a jack-o'-lantern and Daisy and trying to sort of figure out like okay in what way do all of these bizarre disparate sort of magical creatures all sort of fit together.
I thought of it sort of like a martial art. When we came up with Pego, this is like an obscure
Well,
Tai
right, because we
Chi
were talking about
martial
like
art type thing.
Pego Masters.
Yeah,
You were
Pego Masters.
developing your mastery. You were
Hmm.
because it was like a
Hmm.
hyper
Like a 10th
skill
degree
game.
Pego Master.
Yeah, like you could become extremely excellent at
Mhm.
Peggle, right? Like, and I mean, I later in later years, I would sort of evangelize as we were working on Peggle 2 and other Peggle games. It's like the first thing you need to do is just play a lot with Bjorn because you need to be able to internalize the super guide. So Bjorn, he's the headmaster of the Peggle Academy or the Peggle Institute, and his power is that it actually just shows the entire path of the ball. Not the
I think
entire
only
path.
one
I
bounce.
think yeah, but it shows you, but it allows you to directly visualize
Yeah, yeah.
how the ball will move. And so it's just like play with Bjorn, play with Bjorn, play with Bjorn, play with Bjorn, play with Bjorn until you are Bjorn,
This is
until you
interesting.
can just see how the ball will bounce.
He used to be more
Um,
important because originally the way the aiming worked, the cannon would aim directly to your mouse. But because of gravity, the ball wouldn't go through the mouse, right? It would drop off earlier, right?
Arc
If the
off,
cannon's
yeah.
aiming here, it's going to take a parabolic arc, so it's not going to. If my mouse cursor's here, it's not going to pass through. But a lot of like feedback was people were confused by that, play there. Like they expect it to go through the mouse. So I had
right.
to do, I eventually grudgingly agreed and I had to do like a bunch of like work to figure out, well, where the hell do I aim this cannon so it goes through goes through the
It
mouse.
it's a weird thing because I mean when I go back and play Peggle, I would not be able to tell you Precisely. Well, yeah, you're right. If you have the super guide activated, and if the cannon under normal circumstances is aimed directly at the mouse, but it's not. It's well, the
No,
cannon is
it'll
sort of
the
the
dotted line
cannon
will go right through the
is
mouse
always the cannon is always aimed at where
to hit the mouse.
where the yeah, the
So the
path
ball
of
will
the
hit the
ball,
mouse.
but it's not a straight line. It's an arc,
Right,
right? Yeah,
exactly. That has to
exactly.
be calculated, you
Uh,
know. But it used to be a harder game because you couldn't just say, "Oh, I'm going to put my cursor right here on the peg and that's going to create this angle," because
right.
aiming right here on the peg, the ball's not going to hit here. It's going to go here. Aiming directly at getting the ball to go directly through the mouse is not just good for beginner players. It's good for advanced players too, because advanced players really who know the angle can kind of put like if you watch, there's some amazing Peggle players these days. If you go look for Peggle speedrunning or something like that, um, you'll see they have full control of this ball. They like down to like the pixel, you know,
And
they
I'm
can
not quite that good, but certainly I'm good enough
It's
that
nuts.
for that I, but because I played like endless Peggle in the various incarnations of it, Peggle and then Peggle Knights and Peggle 2 and then Peggle Blast. And so I'm at least good enough where it's like, okay, I can take a level apart peg by peg, right?
yeah,
I mean, you can just go ding into the bucket, ding into the bucket, ding into the bucket, ding into the bucket. And
yeah.
then, but I also want to talk a little bit about how there was at least some, I think, minor controversy about the idea of controlling the bucket.
Uh, I remember the bucket. The way I remember is Super wanted a bucket on the bot. He's like, "There's got to be a bucket," and you get when the ball goes in it, something good happens. I'm like, "How about you get the ball back?"
Yeah.
It's like, no, we did it, but it was amazing. Such a good idea because that keeps you so invested in the shot, even when it's going badly. Maybe it'll hit the bucket.
Well, and it's such a weird
Mhm.
thing because like it was like in Peggle Blast, so that's the mobile version, which I think still is available. And I worked on that, and that was eventually came around to the idea of okay, well, once you shoot, then you take control of the bucket. So now you're
Ooh,
sort of trying to get the
oh,
to put the bucket underneath so that you catch it. But to me, I'm like, that's wrong, right?
It's a different game. Yeah.
It's you're all of a sudden now you're not focused on the journey of the ball that you are kind of this witness to. Rather, now you're just sort of trying to keep ahead of it, right?
I can
Well,
imagine it as a power, as a master
this
power,
almost
I mean,
maybe.
it did eventually. It was made into a master in Peggle Blast. There is a
Oh, okay.
master
But
that
it's
is
not
one.
all the time. It's just a master
It's
does
just the
that.
master,
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
So it's a magic power. I hate to say
But
it. I mean, I worked on it and I created dozens of levels for it, but I've forgotten the name of the master whose power is once you fire, you then have control of
like
the bucket and can catch the ball.
this is
bucket
this
master.
being control of the bucket is reminds me of, and I'm sure you guys have played that old school 80s, I guess it was 90s arcade game called Peggle, where you don't control the cannon, you literally rotate the entire peg
Yeah,
field,
we
I
had
which
don't
that
is
think
on
I've
just the
the.
seen
most
that.
awkward thing on earth. And
It's
yeah,
it's
there's
yeah.
it's so bizarre. I had to bring it up because it is like there, like I'm sure that there was some amount of that influenced this like more sane version of Peggle. But it,
We
it
didn't
is
know
interesting.
about that version of
Like
Peggle.
they decided to make you control some other aspect of the game, and it just didn't play out well. It needed to be you shoot the ball out of the cannon, and the bucket is autonomous
Like
down there.
I remember seeing that like be discovering to my surprise that there was an actually a game called Peggle on the MAME cabinet. I think after we'd released Peggle, and it was this ridiculous thing where the ball would come in, you controlled a basically like a plate that could be turned. You could rotate it with a dial, I think, and there were pegs on the board. So it was like a dartboard with pegs that you were turning left and right as the ball was bouncing through
It's
it.
so awkward.
It's just like, yeah, no. Well, our Peggle's better. Like,
Yes.
our Peggle's much, much better than
It
that one.
wasn't even called Peggle until way late in the game.
Well, right. And I remember being really, really salty about that because I've become so attached to all the lore and everything that I had written about Pego Masters. And I was
Mhm.
just like, Peggle, Peggle, like
It's so
Pego.
funny how Pego sounds weird now. But when I
It's
first heard
true.
Peggle, that sounded weird.
What was
Yeah,
the issue that it sounded too much like Lego?
that was the
Or
issue.
Pogo. Was it
or
Lego or
Pogo.
Lego?
I think it was a combination of both, and I was just like, "What the fuck are you talking about? It's not either of those words." Like, if you're Lego, you don't get to just say that you fucking own every four-letter word that rhymes with it. But there was enough concern that it was like, well, we're not going to call it Pego, so we got to come up with another name. And again, it is another one of these cases where after like a way longer than seemed necessary, we eventually landed on Peggle, and then you look back and go like, yeah, Peggle's fine. I don't know why I was being so
That's the
salty about
danger
it.
of creating a name that is not atrocious. You get so attached to it, sounds like the right name. That's why I only created horrible names from the
Yeah.
prototypes.
Ball
Well,
blast.
and then like
Ball
so, and
blast.
another thing that really connects me to Peggle 2 is, or not Peggle 2 as in the numeral 2 as in the sequel, but Peggle 2 TOO also is that of course at some point I just sort of decided to sit down and write this technical document how to create a Peggle level in dozens of easy steps, wherein I sat down and finally learned how to use the Peggle level editor, and it's really fun, right? I mean, it's sort of you go through and like and to me it was like sort of a window into your mind to sort of go step by step about like how each like how do you put a peg down? Okay, how do you select pegs? How do you can flip them, you can paste them in like V flips and X flips, and then like bricks. Okay, let's start with like rectangular bricks and then like the logic of bricks, and then all of a sudden it's like okay, now the logic of bricks in a curve, right?
Yeah.
Like all bricks are parts of an imaginary circle of
Yeah.
bricks, right?
Yeah.
And this is how we define them in the editor and spawn different ones, and like
That
how
was
do you
important
make a
because like Walter was originally he was originally gonna give like brick pieces that were always a certain shape, and I remember very early on I was just like because before the graphics, this was like maybe even Thunderball or whatever he was we were starting to try to get nice looking bricks. You could just define arbitrary shapes, and I'm like, so we came up with a way to just take his thing as a texture, and make it kind of go
yeah.
whatever shape. And I had to do some like stupid, like it looked all jagged the way I did it, and then I would go back in and like add little translucency to the stair steps to make it look.
Well, and because yeah, like and there's like about four or five or six or seven pages in this instruction booklet where I'm going into the details of like, well, what is a brick in Peggle? It is, and like we define it with these angles, and like it can, so you can sort of picture this imaginary circle. A brick can, in principle, be the entirety of that circle,
Gotta look
or it could
bad.
be like 180 degrees of that circle. You should see this brick that is just like around here, and then
Yeah.
another one that comes around like that, or it could be like 90 degrees. But it's just sort of going like, oh, okay, but like for the brick to actually look nice, you basically have to sort of juggle a couple of numbers so that they're about that long each, right?
Yeah,
And they
It's
always have the
a
same,
cliffhanger.
yeah, and they always have the same thickness, right? And so
Yeah.
these sort
Yeah.
of interesting things about like sort of digging into the mathematics of how the bricks are defined, and then seeing how that plays out into things like once you get movement. So now it's like, okay, now I've got a rotating ring of bricks.
Yeah.
Like, how do I do that? How do I separate out all the different types of motion that these bricks are undergoing?
Wasn't it a spline technology for like you draw out where the bricks go, and then once you've got it, then
No.
no?
No. Oh yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah.
Well, I
Sorry.
see. I
You
recall
could
there.
you could hit like N and M to kind of keep drawing along the curve. Like the next brick would attach to the previous one, and you could hit like B to flip to start curving around the other way.
See
And
that?
then like
Yeah.
each brick would attach to the last, and then you could change the angle as you went. That's true.
Well,
Okay,
because
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Well, because I have a vague, and maybe this is a Peggle 2 in like the development where there was something more like, okay, you can define some sort of
No,
spline,
no.
and then it would try to map the brick onto the spline, but you would get these really gnarly, like you had to be very, very touchy about how you define your spline, whereas the
Yeah.
OG Peggle brick, I mean, and like in the editor, I spent like a whole chapter saying, okay, there's a brick definition and there's a brick. So when this brick has the set of fields on the bottom of the editor, what this is doing is this is telling you all the characteristics of this selected brick, right? Whereas brick def is the characteristics of the next brick to
Yeah,
be
yeah, exactly.
created,
And it'll attach
right?
to the current
Yeah,
brick that you have
and it'll
selected.
attach to the. So now you can go, okay, if I start with a brick like that is like 5 degrees of a circle that goes like this, it'll go deep, and then you go like deep, 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 and it'll just keep adding bricks
Yeah,
along with
yeah.
these 5 degrees. But now if I want to do a spiral, I go dit, 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 and then I go to the brick definition and say, okay, now it's a slightly larger angle, and
Yeah,
so then the bricks will be slightly longer, right? And
right.
so you're just going in and mathing like these paths, and then as you say, you could have a brick that kind of goes doink, and then another one that flips
Yeah,
and
there was
goes
a
the
key to
other
make it
way.
start
Yeah,
going the opposite
make it
circle
turn its
direction.
its direction.
But
Yeah.
the cool thing, this is to get back this like Zuma, I remember it was really hard to make levels and Peggle, you could just go in, I could just go anyway, go in the editor and kind of puke out a bunch of pegs and bricks and it would act the level usually be kind of fun to play. I feel like,
Mhm. Mhm.
it like almost as long as you put about 100 pegs in there,
Yeah.
obviously they're better and worse, but the game it was hard. I thought it was hard to mess up a level. You could like I'm not saying it
You
was
could
just
you I mean like you I eventually found ways. I mean like eventually you would learn the things like I mean, for example, there was the piano level where you made it and it
the
was like
Easter egg.
yeah,
Yeah,
like it's like you use a bunch of bricks to make a
an
piano
image.
out of bricks.
Yeah,
But what you discover is that some formations, especially of bricks, just tend to be they kind of kill the movement of the ball. So the ball
yeah,
just sort of goes blub and then it goes doink, doink.
yeah.
It just kind of it falls on a brick and lights that brick up, and then like 2 seconds later that brick vanishes and it falls down to the next brick and then lights that one up. So like it is possible to make bad Peggle
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm
like
sad that
ones that just sort of
The
that
Seattle
can
skyline level didn't get in. I thought that was of all of the kind of Walter and
well
I got in discussion because I made some of these levels that I'm like, oh, I'll just trace some images or something or do. And
well
Walter's like, he's like, I don't think these are going to be good levels like to do art for or he didn't like the look of them. I'm like, oh, because they're too realistic. And he's like. No, they're not realistic. They're representational. And yeah, I don't like that. I'm
well
like,
it's
oh, I
true,
learned
right?
something
I
about
mean
art that day.
well, because and you discover this sort of thing. You go like, all right, I'm going to use this thing to make like a couple of little flowers out of bricks using the Peggle level editor. And then, if you're giving that to Wally to do the art, it's like, I guess I'm going to draw a couple of flowers behind these things because that's what this is, right? Like you haven't really given a lot
That
of given him a lot of scope to do something different.
that's true. Yeah, yeah. The
Um,
abstract gave him much more freedom
But
to
and then you might find maybe like so like an example. I mean, that's a good example of like so a picture of flower, which is like a circle like this, and then a bunch of sort of semicircles around it, and you go like, well, is this going to be a fun level? It's going to be a hard level because you're going to have to sort of bash your way into those flowers, right? And you're not gonna because what you wanted were the opportunities for slides, right? You wanted to be able to like catch some cool slide and have it go
Mm,
zing, like and
yeah.
like that.
Not too easy to get it. You wanted to like have
Yeah.
to make some work, do some work, and then get to it.
Well, precisely. I mean, in a lot of those, especially the very early levels in OG Peggle, are ones in which you've got these beautifully crafted spirals, but you have to like
Right.
chip like there's a blocking peg,
Yeah.
and you have
I
to
really
get rid of
tried
that
to
blocking
avoid you
peg,
having
and
an
then you've
easy
got this
slide.
this
Yeah.
perfect slide, right?
I missed some though. I think on the Fever I found out before, at some point I found out there was something you aim left and then or aim right and do the arrow key 4 times or something and you get the perfect slide. But I'm like, that maybe I'll leave that in. And it turns out the really the hardcore Peggle players, they have like lists of all these amazing moves they can do to start
Well,
out,
I
and that's
mean,
how they speed run the game because they know like aim at this pixel. They aim at like the glint of the pegs. They're like, if I put my mouse right here on this white spot on this peg, then this I know exactly what's going to happen. At the start of the
yeah.
level or
Wow.
something.
Wow.
Whereas I always sort of imagine like if after death is that you were simply sealed inside a white room with no doors and windows and you're only allowed to have like maybe a couple of things with you, it's like if I were allowed to take a video game, Peggle would be on my list. Just
That's
because
high
we go like
praise.
I could just, you could always go deeper into it. You can always get better at it.
Right. Yeah, and that's
Uh,
why the martial art was
yeah.
some kind of the theme that we liked because it's like it seemed, yeah, it's like there's always another degree you can go up, and like I didn't realize how good. Like I said, I've just marveled at what I've seen, like videos of people playing it. You should just look it up. It's crazy. It's crazy. They're like
So
way
toward the
beyond
end
what we can do.
of Peggle development, did you finish Peggle? Am I remembering
I
wrong?
didn't finish Peggle.
You did.
Well, so yeah, we want to like so at this point, yeah, because let's you walked out, right? What happened?
I
Like,
one day, well, every year, I think it happened 3 years in a row. Like 2004, like in the fall, I just got super depressed. 2005 in the fall, I got super. That's when I was getting burned out of Punch Patrol. And then 2000, it started coming again. It was like Labor Day. I mean, I had so many cool things I was working on. I was working on like Peggle. I was working on Zuma's Revenge, or as I wanted to call it, Ms. Zuma.
right,
The frog would have a bow on her head.
right.
And I was working on I did the work on the Zuma for the iPod Touch. I had to go to to Cupertino to test it. Like I had to we went into like the Apple campus and there was a guy who would come in once a day and compile my code. And then
Oh
that was
yeah,
it. No
you went
changes
down there with
after
Chad
that.
or something, right?
Like what's that?
Didn't you go down there with Chad? Or
Yeah, Chad
yeah,
and
yeah.
Dave Roll was there, or you and these are just kind of fun things I look back on, and there's one time, just a story about this working on the iPod Touch Zuma, that something went wrong in the build. It didn't detect a change, and so it was like the previous days, and we're gonna lose a day, and it was like the guy had come in to compile it maybe late in the day, and somehow we tracked him down at his house and forced him to recompile it and put it on our iPod Touch for testing. Like he's like, I got to pick up my girlfriend at the airport. Like, no, redo this really quick. Get this compiled again. We got to get this
Peggle man.
done. Yeah, but every year I would get and it was starting to happen again. I was getting too micro obsessed with Peggle. Like I was starting to I remember getting an argument with Walter on like he'd changed. This is when I knew I had a problem. He had changed these eyelashes on the snail level, one of those stage 2 levels. He'd made them way bigger or something. And I'm like, what is wrong with the old eyelashes? This
Oh,
is
so
when
you
you know
used to
you have a
have
problem.
eyelashes.
And then he like later, we can't I can't work on Peggle for so long and have the eyelashes like this. And then I got, and then like I got, like T Tyson had become the art director at that point, and he's like, Walter tells me you're art directing him. I'm like, yeah, I guess you mean this is the eyelash thing, and. But I remember just feeling, and he's like, I was working with Walter on the second Zuma's Revenge or whatever, and Tyson's like, we're gonna get you guys because we've
Yeah,
been
you've been
having some
chewing on each
problems
other for a
about other
while.
things
Yeah.
too for a while. Like he would give me art and it would have a mistake in it or something that wouldn't work, and I would. Let's just say this happened one time. I don't want to say it was a pattern,
Hmm.
but and I plug it in at I'm trying to get to work, and it's like just something doesn't line up or something. And then I go to him like, I don't think this art lines up. He's like, oh, I knew that. I expect you to come get me. And once you figured that out, and I just like blew up. We're like
Yeah.
yelling at
He
each
was
other all the
he was
time.
troll. He would troll people for sure.
So we were separated and then I was just getting really depressed and then I just like I can't do it. I can't do it another year. I can't go through whatever I'm getting. Like I know I can tell I'm getting insane here. And so I went to go talk to Soup Beer about it and but he had become the head of the studio, so he was gone
Hmm.
a lot. But he was still the producer on Peggle. So I went to go talk to him about it. And he was, and he wasn't there. And I'm just like, this, nobody should do this. I was like, I say, hey, if Super asks where I went, just tell him I quit. And then I left.
I think
That was it.
I think I mean maybe I'm only thinking I'm remembering it, but I remember something like that where it's just like maybe I was just sitting there and you said that and walked out and I
Yeah.
was just like, is he serious? Like,
I think I decided I need to say it. I need to make a scene to make sure I wouldn't come back, which I did. And then later I talked to Sick Bear a few days later and he's like, my first reaction when I heard you quit was relief.
Oh man, it's
Because
just
things were
getting
getting starting
tense.
to get tense. They were really
Well,
starting.
I
It's crazy. It's so crazy because it's just video games. Like it doesn't matter, but like people get so. I'm first to admit it. Like I get like it's just a game. It's just a game, but I can't let it go, and things get really intense. And so
hmm hmm
obviously it was probably, when people tell you it was relief when you quit, it was probably the right decision, you know.
it's kind of honestly a relief to me to hear this other stuff going on. Just because I remember you'd asked me to write a song for Peggle at one point, and so I went home and recorded a song, brought it in, you put it in, and you're like, oh, that's cool. And then Sukbir's like, what the fuck is this? We just hired a whole team to write all these songs for the game, and you're just like getting Isaac to make
Oh,
some song.
Oh yeah, because I was work. Yeah, that's the thing. Like I felt like I was really in it. Like I was just with it every day, right?
hmm
Like trying. I really wanted to get it done too, because to me at the time it felt like it had been going for almost. It had been going for almost like a year and a half. To me, it seemed like a long time. Like and I felt the pressure. I'm like, we got to get this out before like all these people have been seeing this game coming in, thinking of buying PopCap. They're gonna copy our game, and
Right.
we got to get it out first because we got to
Totally.
make plant our flag to show it was our idea. We came up with an original idea. So I felt a little bit of pressure there
Well,
too.
especially considering
Yeah.
that like the sort of the dirty secret of PopCap prior to that was that even though we see like was that we didn't come up with our own game ideas. Like
Right.
Bejeweled was not originally
No,
any like Brian, Jason, or
it was an
John's idea. It
obscure
was
web game,
yeah,
super obscure
exactly.
web
Like
game.
and same with like Puzzloop, I guess, which was the
Yeah,
original
Zuma.
Zuma. Like
Yeah.
all these games that became PopCap hits had didn't originate in the
Like
studio.
a mechanic, a core mechanic.
Yeah,
I
there was
will
a
say, I
core
feel like
mechanic. Yeah.
we always did a really, we improved the games or did a good job on them,
Well, that's what
Our
I
reference
always
points
said
were inferior
was
for
our
sure.
yeah, like our strength at PopCap was that we didn't chase hits. We took flops and made them into hits. Right?
Yeah.
Like we took a game that had like at its core something awesome, but for whatever reason its original iteration just didn't connect with the audience, and we found a way to connect it to the audience. We found a way to make it cool, to make it flashy, to give it
Yeah.
polish and chrome and appeal, right? But as you say, like you could still make that accusation about like not being 100% original, except in the case of Peggle, where it's like, okay, now this was in-house, like full on. I mean, yes, obviously
Yeah.
it has its inspirations from pachinko and pool and
Yeah.
pinball, but nobody could say that this is not a unique fusion of
Right. And
those
that was
three
always
game
and that was
ideas.
that was like I said, it was like, I really want, if we could come up with just like a super original idea that's like really good, really fun, that would be just amazing. That was, so I think that's partly the pressure I was feeling because the super was like, he was saying, it's like, why can't you just, it'll take a little longer. What's the big deal? Like, he's like, you're like a
Which
shark.
is
You always need to be swimming.
such a weird to hear about like that
I'm not trying to
attitude.
throw shade on Sick Bear. I can see it from his perspective. What is your problem? You're working at this amazing company. You get to work on these amazing games. Why are you not like grateful? Which I
Well,
can now
again,
wonder.
like
I don't know. It's
because
my own psychology.
to
Well, you,
hear this, it seems like the reverse of the way things were a few years, not many years later, where it's like, why are you taking so long in this game? Here, it's like, look, we're taking all the time we want. And you're going, come on, I just want to finish the game and get it out, move on. And,
Yeah.
and they're like,
Yeah.
no, man, like we're chill, we'll come out whenever. We still haven't quite figured out the blah blah blah. And
Right. But honestly, I think it was mostly just my own. I had my own kind of seasonal
like internal
depression thing every
timetable.
year. So that it was mostly, I feel like it was mostly that. And I'm just like, I just have to make a dramatic change. I can't do it. Like in 2004, my dad came out because I was so depressed, and he came out and was in the PopCap office. We were working. He's like, he would always come out and we would work on like a project together. He's like, I need to change something about the Linux kernel memory management. We were working, and he would come into the
oh,
office with
Dad.
me, and we were working on that, and we got in trouble because my dad has such a loud voice. Like he gets just really enthusiastic, and you're like, can you keep it like at PopCap? Can you
Yeah,
keep it down a
Oh,
little bit?
jeez.
that's insane. It doesn't make any sense.
But
I want to go back a bit and just reflect on the art style for Peggle,
yeah, yeah.
which I know, because we're talking about Wally, and Walter was the primary artist for the game, and it's such an odd one, right? When you think about like those character portraits, they really are. They're sort of, by conventional sense, they're kind of wrong, right? Like when you look at Bjorn, it's sort of like Bjorn has this sort of painted, rendered look, but also this sort of goofy floppy nose, like in a sense, the Walter's aesthetic that kind of is and is not a form of cartooniness was again, I haven't really seen anything like it elsewhere, but a Peggle was the right place for it, right? Peggle was the thing where somehow these weird things that shouldn't be together kind of
I,
are, right?
I loved all of Walter's art. I like every piece of
Totally.
art Walter gave me. It was just like because I feel again he put a lot of character into his art. He thought very hard like about the personality he was
Well,
putting
and so
into
when it
it.
came time for me to write up these little blurbs as each one would sort of appear in a screen and say, "Hi, I'm Renfield the Pumpkin. My power is Spooky Ball. It's spooky." And like it was a very easy thing for me to step in and hear different voices for each of those
Do you
Peggle
remember when
masters, right?
Spooky Ball was called Wraparound? That was my bland name for the power. And
Sounds
people said
familiar.
it was like offensive. I'm like, what is offensive about
I
It's
wraparound?
think
not
there
reach
the people,
around. What are you
yeah.
talking about?
There was some people who were a little bit too easily offended, I
Yeah,
think, at times at
wraparound.
PopCap.
Uh,
Spooky Ball's better.
speaking of Wally's art style, like I think it's worth talking about Wally a little bit. Just as a person, he was a really he was an artist to the core. Like that guy just lived a wild, crazy life. Come into the office in his bathrobe, would just do wild, just do wild stuff all the time. And early on, we kind of shared our music libraries with each other, and he had all kinds of great stuff in there. And yeah, he'd get wigged out on drugs and call you at 3 in the morning sometimes. And just like, dude, he was out of control. But that's where the art came from. He just had this
Yeah.
open channel to all of the art of the universe, and it just poured
And
through him.
I loved Walter's art. I worked with him on all, the main games like I worked on, like he was
Hmm.
always the artist I worked with. And I was spoiled partly because, I had, at Sierra, it was just mostly just network stuff I did, and the game that Brian and I did, Wordox, we just did the art ourselves. It was just programmer art. So Walter gave me the art, and it's like it's great, but I didn't realize until later working after PopCap, like how special it was.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
getting art later and realizing, not everybody produces like art just filled
Turns
with
out there was one
personality,
Walter.
like
Yeah.
this. So yeah, that was awesome. That's what is so awesome about PopCap. It's just like from my perspective, I could just work on these games. And I know I talk about it's taking so long, but there were people there that could do amazing job on every aspect of it, the art, the music, the sounds.
Josh. Yeah.
Like as just the programmer and doing game design, it's like all this other production stuff just somehow just appears in Burrito or whatever. I don't know where it came from. It's just like put it in and it's cool. Like it just I yeah, I didn't real like the whole thing, like, after PopCap, I'm like, for me, for in my own games afterwards, things haven't been anywhere near as smooth as in PopCap, I will say, and trying
Yeah,
to
there's a good
find.
infrastructure there, even from early on, and a lot of people that really knew their business and knew
Although
how
let
to
me
how
just
to
say really
communicate.
quickly, we do have a music person that we use whenever we make music. Heather Perkins, she actually does an amazing job on music and sound effects. So Heather,
Awesome.
on the off chance you're listening to this, I love everything that you do. I'm not talking about that. It's and I'm not the only one.
Good to know. Good to know. We could talk about some of the wild adventures and stories of
Oh yeah, you
PopCap.
had something you want to talk about.
Yeah, I had a couple on the list, but yeah, you were definitely part of one of the stories that I love to tell, which is a little out of control. Somebody involved in the higher up part of the company was sitting at a bar in Belltown with you and me and somebody else that I didn't know, and they just suggested that we drive to Las Vegas, and we were all like had a few drinks in us, and it was like I think a Friday night or something. I don't know.
I think I suggested we drive to Las
Did
Vegas,
you
didn't
suggest
I?
that? Yeah,
I
yeah. I'm
think I
wondering what. Yeah,
suggested.
you'll have to fill in some
I
of the
don't know
blanks
why I
here.
suggested that. Maybe because I'd watched Swingers recently or something like
Let's
that.
drive to Vegas. And so that ended up being, close your ears, younger kids. We drove to somebody's house and did a bunch of an illicit drug, and then we got out on the
But
road.
one of the good ones.
Yeah, one of
Yeah.
the good. Yeah, it
One of
was
the
I think
harmless
MDMA.
it's
ones
that's
that
the
doesn't
first
hurt
time. Can I
anybody.
just say I never had done one illicit drug before that night in my
Yeah,
life.
yeah. It was,
I
and that
just
was
took that teaspoon of whatever that was and flipped it into the back of my throat with everybody else.
And off we went on a crazy journey. Yeah, and it was I remember we got down to we're driving from Seattle, we got into Portland, and we were all just really feeling it. And then there's this idea to pull over to a rest stop and do a little more. And then we got down into
Because I
God
didn't
some
get enough. Because I'm like, I don't think it's working. I didn't flip enough into my the second time that you're right. I remember now. We stopped, got whatever that stuff was, got another spoon, and I remember I partly missed the back of my mouth and I got a little bit of chemical burn on the front of my tongue.
Oh
This is the
wow.
kind of drug that one takes when one is like contemplating a 12-hour drive to Las Vegas
This is how
starting
you
at
get there. Yeah,
like 10
exactly.
p.m. or
Yeah.
whatever.
We learned it from the
Uh,
truckers. Uh, but
But and
yeah,
then
then I remember we got into like southern Portland, it's like 4 in the morning or something, I don't even know. And we drive by this absolutely horrific car crash on the other side of the road. I remember like cars on fire, just emergency vehicles everywhere, big slowdown, and it was really like emotionally impactful. I remember feeling like people died over there, and this is a sign to us. And I remember like us all kind of looking around the car at each other like we should just turn around and go back. And actually somewhere right in there, I remember you ejecting the contents of your stomach
yeah,
all over the back seat.
yeah, I was like lost track of what was going on, and the next thing I remember is people groaning. I'm like, "What's going on?" And I look down and I'm just covered in
no.
puke. And so we stop at a rest stop, right? And I'm like washing off, trying to just getting all my clothes wet in the restroom sink, and I'm like,
Uh,
guys, I think I don't want to be the cause of stopping this journey, this mission. So I'm prepared to go to Las Vegas covered in puke,
You were
uh,
a bold soldier that evening, absolutely.
But we decided to turn around.
yeah, I think
Yeah, I
that
think it
was
was
a
it was it
good
was the car wreck,
idea.
and that other guy that I don't know who he was who came with
We
us. He
thought he
was
was
like,
your we thought he was your friend.
it wasn't my friend, but all I know is that he said at one point, he said, "You know what? I didn't actually do any drugs. I'm perfectly sober. You should let me drive." And we're like,
He
"Yes."
was a hero. Yeah, he was
He
a
totally
hero.
was.
But
So
I'm gonna tell you, once it kicked in after the puke, I felt better than I had in months because I was going. I maybe I don't go just through seasonal depressions. Maybe I go through multi-season because I was in a depression then too. I forget
yeah,
what it was, and then that I swear it got me out of it. I felt like this is what it feels like to feel normal, like
I
just to
remember that. I
feel.
remember you
Remember,
saying
we
that.
had
I
a
was
good
like, "That's
conversation. And I'm
awesome."
like, wow, this is great. I can just talk to you. And it feels great just to talk to somebody, and I don't have like whatever weight on me or like, anxiety or anything. It just completely evaporated. It was amazing.
I
Yeah,
love that.
really good experience.
The whole
This is
thing
why
was just
people
such a
do drugs. I don't know.
it,
Don't do drugs, kids.
I get it now. It was such a marathon experience, and there were that there was that kind of happy moment, and it was just it's one of those things. As I look back across this long, storied career, I think about that night as just like that was cranking on all cylinders as far as just doing crazy stuff around PopCap. We did a lot of crazy stuff around there, but that was just like next level. I'm glad we made it
Uh,
home alive.
Yeah, we made it. We made it. Here to tell the story.
And then, and it's funny, we talked about some of the parties too. There was a summer party. I've got pictures from it I think we blur some faces and whatnot. We can probably throw them up when we publish this. And Steve was there too. It was I think 2006 or something out in West Seattle. And
I think we've actually shown a picture or at least one a picture from that party in a previous episode. I think we've dropped in like a quick picture of Jeff or something from that.
yeah.
Uh,
Oh, wait, actually, that was one. The one with Jeff was from that was from down in or not Alki, but Golden Gardens. We had a party there.
we had
But
a
the
lot
one
of
out in West
parties.
Seattle, the one out in West Seattle was a little later, and I think what it was is that Katrina, who was our kind of workforce culture person at the time, had gotten a criticism that the alcohol at previous parties wasn't strong enough, or there wasn't enough of it, or something. And
Jeez.
she's like, okay, and made this like Spodie that was the strongest drink I think any of us had ever had, and we were not ready for it at
The
all.
hurricane.
And,
She called it
as
the
much
hurricane.
training as we had done, we weren't prepared for this. And I remember finding the party by just like I got there late and I could just hear this screaming and yelling and shouting off through like the forest in West Seattle. And I remember like, oh, that's got to be it, And sure enough, I go through the woods and around this little path, and there's just like PopCap. Just you can almost see like a dust cloud over the crew of people. It's just there was wrestling matches going on. We had the Oozinator, those super soakers that were popular at the time. The Oozinator, people are shooting each other with that. There was just pure chaos going off. And you brought it up as we were talking about doing this show. Like
Yeah,
that
I
was
said we have to spend the first hour dissecting what happened at the 2006 PopCap summer picnic.
Well, I can't tell any of them apart, so I'm not helpful in that effort, I'm afraid. I have a few sort of key memories from different picnics, but I certainly am no good whatsoever in telling one from another.
Well, I drank a bunch of those hurricanes. Now, it's funny. Now all of my stories are about being like puking on myself and drinking too many hurricanes, but I swear this is
we're trying to
completely
keep it real
not
with the
normal
interviews
for
here,
me.
right? So
But yeah, I remember thinking I'm like sometimes I'll have social anxiety and I remember thinking like I'll just start drinking immediately and that'll make this picnic go by real fast. And it did actually go by really
Well, yeah,
fast. I only have
it's actually
vague memories. I remember like it was really sunny out and I was in a field and Kathy was there with her baby and I remember think suddenly and I was putting sunscreen on. I'm like, wait, does your baby have sunscreen on? Your baby probably needs sunscreen. And Kathy looked very scared that I was going to try to, in my drunken state, blather her new baby with sunscreen or something. And
I want a
you
cartoon
see
of that.
you
Like
see things through people's eyes. You're like, wait, am I being the weird one here? I'm trying to figure it out.
I just don't want your baby to burn to a crisp. I'm
Yeah,
here to help.
looked very pale.
That night ended up with a bunch of us going back to Don's house,
Yeah,
Don that you work with, and he had like the whole top floor where he lived was like this big open, just kind of hangout area,
yeah, a roof
and
like on his roof. Yeah,
on his roof, yeah. And I remember he had a dog run around. He's like, Anybody, do not throw the dog toy." Okay, because the dog, if it goes off the roof, the dog will follow it, and you'll be responsible for killing the
Brody
dog.
would do that. Yeah,
And then
definitely.
And so our dear friend Andy Puro, who I'm sure is listening right now, wanders up there, grabs a dog toy, goes bam, and bounces it off the floor and it hit Don right in the head. And I thought those two were going to go at it right then, but it was okay after that. And then we just played poker until I don't even know. We just played poker, and then I went black at some point.
Did you encourage me to throw up? Somebody was like, "You just got to throw up. You got to get it
Maybe,
out, and you'll
maybe
be okay."
That
sometimes it
that does
solves the
sound like
problem.
the kind of sort of thoughtful advice I might expect from Isaac. I mean, because it is actually good advice. It's like if you're feeling sick, puke,
Yeah,
get
Get
it
it out of
out.
your system.
yeah.
Like
Don't be a hero.
So we've we've talked about some of that ridiculous stuff. But after PopCap, like, did you and Don start working together right away, or was there like kind of a leisure period?
I quit and I went. My dad was helping. He was in San Francisco with my sister helping. She had like a year old, my niece who was a year old at the time. He was helping her watch the baby or whatever. And I just like, I quit PopCap. He's like, why don't you come down to San Francisco, hang out here? And I went there and he's like, okay. I have a project. It's a video streaming project. I figured out a way with spinning hard disks. If you put the data, line it up in a certain way, the arm has to move a certain amount of time. But if you line the data up in a correct pattern, you won't have to worry about the time, the seek time of the arm. So I worked on my dad's video streaming project for a while,
Wow.
for a month or two. And then at some point, I'm like, okay, that's in a good spot. I guess maybe I do want to do games again. Because for a while, I'm like, maybe I'm done with games. Maybe games are too. And then, but then I'm just like, no, I'll do games. So I called some people I knew, and one of them was Don. I'm like, what are you working on? And he's like, oh, I'm starting a new game company with Jenny Martin, who he'd worked with at EA. And he's like, I'm like, oh, do you need a programmer? He's like, yeah. And so that's how I started with those three. Yeah, on this.
And was it called Gobit right from the
Oh yeah,
start?
Gobit.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
Jenny and Don came up with that name. They're like they were looking for domains that were 5 letters and they found gobit.com. So they're like, all right, that'll be a name, Gobit,
I
Gobit
mean now,
Games.
and maybe I have the wrong idea about how Gobit has been, but I sort of look at this and go, I mean, at least the way I think it is that you guys went off, created Gobit, made like some games, basically Burger Shop is like the flagship game of
Yeah.
Gobit, and it's not a giant mega hit, but it's just like, oh, well, if you've got like a video game company with like 4 people in it, this game can certainly sell enough copies to
Yeah.
keep 4 people like alive for
Well,
decades,
in
right?
in our case, yeah, it was like actually Jenny left after a year and a half. So it's just me and Don, and we will contract art, like I said, to HP for our music and artists. We have never found our go-to ride or die contract artist, I will say. But
Rich Werner, he's looking for work.
oh, okay, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
so that's, what we would be helpful to us. But yeah, so it's just the two of us, and I'm always like, surely at some point we're gonna just go out of business. To my surprise, we do different things. We do mobile versions of the game. We're on Steam now, or
Well,
things
I
like
mean, when I think about Plants vs. Zombies 2, which I worked on for the last half of the 20 teens, I guess, it's like, okay, well, that was a larger team than you might think. I mean, it was probably 12 to close to 20 people if you were to include all the folks in India that were working on it. But at the same time, it's like, okay, well, this mobile game is bringing in something like 12 to 15 million dollars a year. So even if you are splitting that between, 20 people, that's definitely real money. It's bringing in more money than it's costing. It's actually employing these people. And so if
yeah.
you have an even smaller team,
I'm going to
then it's
reveal
like,
right now, live on air, that we're not making 12 to 15 million dollars a year at
sure,
Gobit
but
Games.
You have made three versions of the game. There is a fan base out there
I
for it.
know, I know. Yeah, Burger Shop 3. Burger Shop 3, I'm proud to say, is like one of the most delayed games in history. It was, I think, at first announced. Burger Shop 1 came out in 2007, Burger Shop 2 in 2009. We have other games, but this is the one that people actually play.
I know
And
you did
and
Evil.
Burger Shop 3, I think we announced it like in 2010 or 11. It was supposed to come out in 2011, and it's still 2026, like Steam early access.
Oh wow! For some reason, I thought three had come out
I,
already.
I
It,
just
it is out. If you go to Steam, it's very positively reviewed.
I went and got it this afternoon. I played
Oh,
it a little bit before we started. You start out with the tacos and the rapidly start having to pour Cokes for people, and then everything just gets even worse. It's just like
I'm proud of the Burger Shop 3 story, I'll say. It only has the first 16 chapters, which encompasses the first part of the game.
it's it's
But
very much the opposite of Peggle in the sense that Peggle has this sort of Zen quality of, observe the board, aim, think carefully, fire, observe, watch the shot take place. Burger Shop is just like frantic clicking.
Burger
It's like
Shop is
I've got to
a,
like click
yeah,
on this and then the click,
it's,
click, 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 click,
it's,
click over here, click, 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 click over here, click, click, click.
I would say it's like a time management arcade game, right? You're not watching you're not saying, oh, go to the stove and get something, and then you're waiting for that. You're like, you pick the
Yeah.
food off the conveyor belt. You're kind of constrained partly by the machines, like to fill a soda cup, but as you're doing that, you want to do stuff as quickly as possible. There's
Well,
never any downtime.
yeah. I mean, like because you've got the right clicking and the left clicking,
Yeah.
and the first couple of levels are just say, oh, and so you could just if you've collected four ingredients and they've combined them into the thing that the guy wants, just right click and it'll automatically be delivered to him. Because again,
Yeah.
yeah, it's just like you're not directing units to do things. You are the unit, right? As
It's
you say.
amazing though how good this is something I learned because on Burger Shop 3, there's a Burger Shop fan Discord that I joined because people were trying to tell me about things on the Steam forums. And they're like, oh, just join our Discord. And on that Discord, I didn't realize how good people had gotten at Burger Shop, like
Well,
just like Peggle. Like they are so good. I've added more and more difficulty to the game options. Like there's an option, like when you first start, right? It shows you, do you want to play relax, normal, or
right.
extreme difficulty? Extreme difficulty is serving 5 customers at a time, which is
Well,
never
and
was a
and
thing
when you get to
before.
the end of each level, it sort of scores you, right? I mean, it's another element to what I've always admired about your game design or your game programming is like these sort of intricate scoring systems that have a lot of headroom.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
so, like whatever you play Punch Patrol or Peggle or Burger
Zuma.
Shop, and you
Yeah.
finish a level or Zuma, you kind of know, okay, I did pretty well, but it's possible to do
Yeah.
better.
And a
Like
lot of
if
that's
I
come
if I if
yeah.
I really perfect my game, I can be as good as Ace.
Well, no, no, these players are better. They do things I can't do. Like they're like, you need more awards because it used to be like if you get perfect service, like 5-star service, that was the best you could do.
And they were like,
But
like,
well, there was a
yeah,
mode I added at some point to Burger Shop 1 and 2 called Extreme Mode, where it was kind of a metaphor for free mobile gaming because it was like customers demand free 5-star service, no
yeah,
charge. No, your food doesn't cost anything, and you have to get 5 stars on
right.
all. And then it's measured. They'll automatically eat treats to stay satisfied. But people would try to, because I had a metric. It would track how many treats used on every level. I never thought it was possible to get 0 treats throughout the whole extreme mode, all the levels. But people did it, right?
It
People
is,
did that, and
yeah.
people would also play in a way they'd never use BurgerBot, the robot that can make the orders sometimes. Like that's really hard to, and they would do no treats, no burger bot. And so I added this in Burger Shop 3. You can turn on totally unnecessary awards on the map, and you'll get a gold star if you don't use treats, and you'll get or you'll get a 0 on your gold star if you don't use treats, and you'll get a double gold star if you don't use treats or burger bot.
It is,
And then
it
some
is
people are
such a
trying to go 5 at a time, double gold star. Like
like
it's
the
crazy.
whole like speedrunning community and this sort of deep investigation of these video games where people going like I've played Super Mario 64 so many, I've thrown like 50,000 hours of time into this game, so I know
Yeah.
every nook and cranny of it, and I'm going to do it with this constraint and that constraint and this
Yeah.
third constraint and this fourth one and like blah blah blah. Like I'm gonna or something like Elden Ring where it's like, okay, I'm gonna play the entire game, from beginning to end in 2.5 hours, and I'm not gonna take one hit of damage.
Yeah.
Like, and I'm gonna start as a guy who's naked with no weapons. Like, and there will be people that like do that in
I mean,
in
it's
Elden
awesome
Ring, right?
seeing what
Like,
people can do, something you didn't. It reminds me a little bit of when we were playing Robotron at PopCap. I
You
remember
were one of
always
them. That's
thinking,
right.
I remember always thinking, I'm like, did the guy who designed this, what level could he get to? This game only took 6 months to make. How could he ever have
yeah.
even seen these levels or played these levels? I mean, maybe he would skip to them or something, or I don't know,
I
but it
mean,
was,
yeah, maybe he just sort of like kind of. I mean, I'm sure that Robotron eventually sort of breaks down. It just starts repeating waves, with like some number incremented,
yeah,
right?
I mean, maybe he has an
Um,
advantage of knowing exactly how the enemies target you and stuff like that. But again, I know how Burger Shop works, and I can't play as well. Like I can't do the things these guys are doing, or in Peggle, right? I can't do the Peggle players. Here's an example of what they did. They were able to use the AI shot thing. They hijacked it to create heat maps for every level that investigated every pixel you could aim at and it would come up with how good it was to aim at that pixel as your initial shot, and it would color code it.
Wow.
And they investigate those heat maps, say, okay, what happened? Here's a good area of research for this level to make good progress to quickly finish the level. There are people
This
who can do Peggle. They call it Ultra Extreme Grandmaster. It's like they get Ultra Extreme Fever on every level. They do all the levels from very beginning, go through all levels, Ultra Extreme Fever, all of them, and get every trophy, every
I
challenge.
mean, like I who
Blows
consider
my mind.
myself, I consider myself a grandmaster of Peggle, both like just for having like created a quarter of all Peggle levels in
Yeah.
existence have probably been made by me, as well as having written like tens of thousands of words in the voice of Bjorn for the Bjorn blog that has been essentially demolished from the internet. But again, yeah, like I am a grandmaster of Peggle, but my skills are dwarfed by like rendered into non-existence in the faces
This
of some
is
of these people.
And what's different today is you can see it. You don't just hear legends that you watch the video of them. You can just see it for yourself.
But one of the most wonderful things about Peggle from the very beginning was the notion of replays, right? Like, again, just such a smart thing to go, like, we can actually just, like, that was such a cool shot. I wish I could see it again.
Yeah.
And then, like, at some point, you must have said, like, well, I could certainly keep a running tally of what the state of the board was when I shot the last shot. So if
Yeah.
I want, I can save that shot,
The state before
save
and
the
just
state,
fire at the
and
same angle. And assuming
yeah,
your floating point is the same, it'll work perfectly. But if not, you can hack something together. But
yeah.
yeah, no, that happened because people were like, they would have a cool shot. And they're like, oh man, you missed it, right? It just
Yeah.
all these things just happened as like two-player mode. I think Ben was just like, it'd be cool if there were two-player mode, like where we can fire, we come up with that. And yeah, it really just started clicking, from the time of Soup Beer's level, like there was a slow period where you have that fear. You're like, is this another one of those games? It's like, it's kind of fun, but it's not quite there.
Oh
And then
no.
suddenly, it just started working and it felt so good just to really get beyond that step and just the ideas are flowing and everything is feeling good about it.
All right. Well, I think that we couldn't possibly have a better way to end this episode than with that sentiment.
Yeah.
So, Isaac, unless you have anything you want to add, I think we probably should wrap up here. We've been
Wrap
at
it
it
up.
for like 2 hours and more.
Yeah, yeah. I guess the only thing I was curious about now is just kind of what you're working on right now. Are you?
Burger Shop 3.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. I
It's
had a
still
feeling. I was gonna.
it's
I was gonna
still
ask
in
if that was it.
development.
And
I'm
is there
proud.
any?
Past a certain number of after the decade mark, it goes from a badge of, shame to a badge of honor and determination that you're
So yeah, you
still.
just flip the scoreboard
It's
basically.
what the
So
story is about too. In the story, it's about, it's 500 years in the future and you're trying to figure out, did Burger Shop 3 ever come out? That's part of the mystery.
And it's just gobit.com, right?
Gobit.com. Yeah, you can
Gobit.com.
play Evil Orbs, which is sort of like Peggle.
some early evil orbs.
It breaks my heart to say that I don't like Evil Orbs as much as
I
Peggle,
like Evil
unfortunately.
Orbs. Let me show you. I'm proud of this. My uncle sent me a birthday card of his. He got it perfect
Oh,
on this
nice.
Chrome level. Like that is like freaking impossible. I gotta say, he just did that.
I mean,
Beautiful,
I guess
beautiful.
it's just that Evil Orbs. It's weird. I mean, because the idea of sort of rotating this paddle in order to
Yeah,
get the right
you can
angle
get
on
really
the
good at it.
on the ball is just. I don't know. I can't put into words why I find it less satisfying. I guess it's just because gun at the top and the transit of the ball from
Yeah.
bottom to top is so.
Play it
Yeah.
for a while, your brain can get very good at a mental model of how to hit the paddle and
Because
get
I
it to
just
go
sort
where
of
you
find
want.
that with the rotating paddles and
Yeah.
evil orbs, it just doesn't click for
Yeah,
me
yeah.
the same
No,
way
I know.
that Peggle
It's not
does.
a pop.
But
There's no
yeah,
shame in it. It's like
it's
not
a
a
little
popular
shame.
game. But again, I'm like I still like the game. Like, but it's better when other people like it, I'll say.
I
All
had
right,
fun playing it.
well,
You had me tested a little bit when it first came along, and
Oh
I
yeah.
totally had
Yeah.
fun with it. It was
Yeah.
awesome.
we're gonna again thank very much our great guest Brian Rothstein, Ace Rothstein, creator, Peggle Master, original programmer for the original classic PopCap Peggle. And with that, we are going to wrap this episode of the Unofficial PopCap PopCast. Yeah!
Yeah, PopCap!
Yeah!